Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. I'm your host, Brian Doe. Um, let's just get into it here. We have had a rough ride over the last couple years since this whole marijuana legalization thing has been sweeping the nation. There's been a dramatic uptick in what you call reefer madness. And the three strongest planks of reefer madness these days seem to be that there's this ridiculous rise in drug driving or whatever because of cannabis legalization. Now, I'll do a whole nother story about that, but just right off the bat, this premise that it heavily relies on the idea that because legalization happened, more people smoke weed. I don't know if that's even true, because we've seen statistics coming out of Washington and Colorado, and they're simply just not there. There's simply nothing to support that more people or dramatic number of people increase. I mean, the way they got it sounding is basically because legalization happened, everybody's going to just start smoking weed tomorrow, which is totally bullshit. And in fact, another plank of the reefer madness that we're talking about is the teen use going up. Now, there's another story coming out of Washington where they are talking about how teen use actually has gone down. So basically, I don't know if I'm going to do a story about that or not. I might mention it, but I think their research has been called into question or something. I don't know if they're saying that the use has gone down or if it just hasn't gone up and the population has increased or something. But bottom line is we all know that that's not true either, because if you look at places that have legalized not just cannabis but all drugs, teen use goes down. Seems like it's just not as fun anymore or something. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and read this article because teen use actually fell to a 20-year low. And the final plank is the actual gateway theory. So that's used in tandem. You have the first theory where you got people crashing their cars more, just simply not true. There's simply no data to back that up. And then you got the kids using more, and then you got the gateway. So it's supposed to work kind of like in a circle to scare the shit out of parents. Like, oh no, they're going to do this gateway drug, and next thing you know, they're going to be shooting heroin. Well, we all know what the gateway drug is to heroin. It's any kind of opiates. It's not cannabis. It's some kind of opiates, obviously. So let's read this. Teen marijuana use falls to a 20-year low, defying legalization opponents' predictions. As you can see this chart, age 12 to 17 is the blue one. Basically ticked up a tiny bit, I guess you could say. Rates of the past month marijuana use. So that's like if you ask somebody, hey, have you used marijuana in the last month? In 2016, rate of marijuana use among the nation's 12 to 17-year-olds dropped to their lowest level in more than 2 decades. So the 12 to 17 is the blue. I guess it spiked over here, sometime in the mid to late 90s. This chart's kind of hard to look at and really gather the data just by looking at the graph. This is according to federal survey data released this week. Last year, 6.5% of adolescents used marijuana on a monthly basis, according to the latest national survey on drug use and health. That represents a statistically significant drop from 2014, when the nation's first recreational marijuana shops opened in Washington State and Colorado. The last time monthly teen marijuana use was this low was 1994, according to the survey. Public health experts tend to worry about more adolescents than young drug use because adolescent brains are still developing. Teen drug use was linked to a lot of health problems later in life, including addiction, criminal behavior, and cognitive deficits, like not being able to read the damn text. No, unfortunately though, we're reading from like the Washington fucking Post. So of course they're gonna slip in any kind of propaganda that's still widely available because it hasn't been heavily debunked in mainstream thinking. But I'm here to try to change all that. And I want you to share my videos or whatever you got to do to get this shit out there and get it more in the dialogue that no, this is bullshit. Teen use is not linked to any of this bullshit. And this link here, I don't know what they're trying to get you to look at, but it's all bullshit because there is no scientific studies that showed any of this. And here you have whatever this is. It's definitely not the U.S. National Library of Medicine National Health Institute. So we're definitely not going to read this more in-depth version of the same propaganda. We have no evidence that there is any health problems later in life. How can you know that? Because you asked somebody that had a health problem, hey, when did you start smoking marijuana? Oh, when I was like 12 or 13. Oh, okay. Now you know, did you even ask them what other things that they did? And you cannot possibly say that they're people that just smoked. And then look at this, teen drug use. This ain't even marijuana. This is teen drug use. So you're talking about smoking cigarettes, addiction, criminal behavior, and cognitive. This is just ridiculous, guys. To just slip that shit in there and pop up with a link for, oh, you know, believe me, we know, we've done the studies. No one's done the studies. The studies couldn't possibly have been done. And it's correlative at best, and you're not taking anything into consideration. Fucking, come on, Washington Post. What is your slogan? Democracy dies in darkness? Well, I guess so does the fucking straight story without the propaganda coming from you guys. Christopher Ingraham. This ain't the first time I've read him either. I think he writes about the weed stories. Anyway, the federal data show that adult marijuana use, on the other hand, is rising. Last year, 20.8% of Americans between the age of 18 and 25 used marijuana at least monthly, the highest number since 1985. According to, among adults aged 26 to 34, 14.5% used marijuana monthly in 2016. Also, the most since 1985. Can we just say, again, like I said before, that this is just because people are more willing to say that they do, and probably the number is even higher than both of those numbers, and always has been. Those numbers have been rising for several decades. So has the number of people that publicly say they would be supportive of legalization. That's because the whole prohibition thing is crumbling down like a shoddily built wall during a fucking earthquake. All right, this was well before the advent of legal recreational and medical marijuana. The survey didn't provide trend data for older age groups, but other studies have shown that marijuana use is growing the fastest among middle-aged and older adults, you know, like grandma and grandpa. And why shouldn't it? There's nothing wrong with it. It's completely safe. It's a lot safer than half those fucking drugs that are shoveling down these old people's throats from the big pharma. While marijuana use increased among adults, past month alcohol use fell, according to the survey. Last year, 55% of adults age 18 and older drank alcohol at least monthly, compared to 56% in 2015. While small, that drop was statistically significant, leaving some credence to the notion that some adults may be substituting marijuana for alcohol. Public health research has generally shown that alcohol use is more harmful to individuals and society than marijuana use, although marijuana still poses a number of risks to its users. So all this crap you set up here about teen drug use is linked to blah, 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 blah. I mean, you could have been including alcohol in there too. We don't know what you're talking about there. I'm not going to read that long-ass, even the abstract, which looked like it was 2 pages long, about this so-called study that you have there. So yeah, there you have it. Teen use fell. That's all there is really to say. Uh, there's a story out of Washington, but this is out of a paper right out of Washington. So let's go ahead and look at this real quick. So, teen marijuana use treatment admissions fall in Washington state post legalization. So, again, this is just like going against this whole notion that somehow, legalizing marijuana is just going to make this like super explosion of teen use or whatever. The regulation of adult cannabis use in Washington is not associated with any increase in teens' marijuana consumption or abuse rates, according to a report the state legislature compiled by researchers at the Washington State Institute for Public Policy. That sounds more of something that I'm going to trust and take into consideration than that whatever the fuck that thing was that you Washington Post idiots put together to try to make it look like teen use causes all this shit later in life and horrible things. Yeah, I'm sure it does. It did. It didn't, but you also, your data wasn't really all that good. It was basically like, oh, teen use in America in general has gone on. You didn't really have anything specific about a state where marijuana has been legal. You just said, well, it's the lowest it's been in a long time, even though we've been relaxing marijuana laws. And it makes it sound like just because they legalize in Washington, some kid in Missouri is going to be like, yeah, man, I'm going to smoke weed. I mean, they're going to smoke weed anyway. So any of this idea that legalizing weed makes people smoke it more, just fucking stop it already, man. Authors reported that rates of current marijuana use and lifetime marijuana use have fallen among young people since lawmakers enacted legalization in 2012. These declines were most pronounced among 8th and 10th graders. Among adults, rates of cannabis use have increased. However, there has been no corresponding rise in adults' use of alcohol or tobacco, or in the number of adults seeking treatment for marijuana abuse during this time period. That's going to go down. All those are going to go down. Alcohol use, tobacco use. I quit smoking. I practically don't even drink that much. And as far as marijuana abuse, as long as you ain't forced to admit that you're a marijuana addict and you were marijuana abusing to a judge because you got caught with a dime bag, then that's going to go down too. Researchers concluded, quote, we found no evidence that I-502 enactment on the whole affected cannabis abuse treatment admissions, and we found no evidence that the amount of legal cannabis sales affected youth, substance use, or attitudes about cannabis or drug-related criminal convictions. Separate studies from Colorado and Oregon similarly reported the enactment of adult use marijuana regulations has not adversely impacted youth use patterns in those states. So all you people, especially the Democrats on the East Coast, talking about, oh, we're just waiting it out and looking at the legal states, Hillary Clinton's old line, oh, we need to pay attention to the people that have done it a little bit more, and we need to see what else we can learn from them. Well, every time they tell you something, you fucking turn around and spew that reefer madness back at us. So fuck off. We know that the government, the Democrats, the Republicans, none of them want to legalize marijuana. None of them want to get rid of prohibition, especially. So we'll do what we can and wade through the bullshit.